Arc Raiders is dead for me. And according to the Steam chart, for other 80% of the initial player base. And if you wonder why, listen up. At first glance, this game looks incredible. But the more I played it, the more I realized it's not random. There's a pattern behind it. If you try to narrow all of its problems down, you end up with something much simpler. With a conclusion that the emotional curve compared to other extraction shooter games is compressed so much that you barely give a damn. This single thought is piercing through all game aspects, and once you notice that, this one idea starts bleeding into every system. And that's where the thing starts to fall apart. Loot, fights, progression, risk, it all feels flattened. This isn't a review. This is an autopsy of a game that had everything. The looks, the feel, the hype, but forgot to give me a reason to give a damn. Let's start with something simple, with color coding. In any other game, color coding, it means something. You see gold and your brain goes jackpot.
Oh, what? It's a mythic! Oh!
You see gray, you think placeholder garbage. That's a universal language across games. But this game, it completely breaks the contract. Only here you can witness the weapon tier list where purple and golden items are never S tier. Not because of players are sleeping on them, but because the design doesn't support it. At the last moment, developers finally realized that they created a boring game. So instead of rebuilding it, they just duct taped PvP on top. Now the whole system splits in two. If you look at PvE only, suddenly everything makes sense. Higher tier weapons like Renegade, Torrenta or Equalizer with Jupiter actually outperform the low tier stuff against arcs. The color hierarchy works, but only here. The moment you step into PvP, the illusion collapses. Because now your endgame loadout looks like this. Grey, slightly modded Stitcher paired with a level 4 anvil for long range. Sometimes revolver could be replaced with a Renegade for long range, or there can be Toro or Venator instead of SMG. Maybe some connoisseur pick up on a Burletta. That's it? That's the endgame PvP most potent loadouts. How am I supposed to be excited to find a golden weapon in a dead body if I know that a grey Stitcher kills just as good? Imagine Fortnite working like this. You find a golden scar and you already know that grey pistol in your hands kills just as fast, maybe even faster. That moment when your brain should go, this is huge, just doesn't exist. And without that moment, the entire reward system collapses. For example, take any other extraction shooter. Escape from Tarkov, Arena Breakout. In the endgame, players don't run around with scraps. They are stacked. Class 5, Class 6 armor, fully kitted weapons, the kind of loadout that costs over $1 million. So when you are lucky to drop a player like that and take his gear, that's not just loot, that's a jackpot. Especially if you are underdog and late to a wipe. And there's another part that's supposed to feel amazing. When you finally find a weapon, it feels expensive. You feel it. You know that you picked up something powerful and it didn't belong to a weak player. It belonged to someone who knew what they were doing. And today, you were lucky to outplay him. And now, this fucking Nutter 9000 is yours. And it can carry you through the next raids. What do you usually do with it? You stash it. 1, maybe 2 of these fancy ass weapons always sitting in your inventory untouched. And each of them has its own unique story. And you're not using them, not because you don't need them, but because you are afraid to lose them. Because deep down, you know you're not good enough for them yet. So they become this weird promise to yourself. One day I'll take this to a raid and actually survive with it. And you just keep waiting for that version of yourself to show up. The one who won't lose it to the first random encounter on a map. Look, I've played thousands of hours in a mood of Tarkov and in a chaos of Apex to know one thing. It's all about the adrenaline and the thrill which you're getting from high highs and low lows. while everything in between trying to kill you. And you're terrified, you're excited, you're alive. In Arc Raiders, you never feel adrenaline rush. Hands are not shaking because the game doesn't even have the balls to punish you, because it's so desperately trying to please everyone. Highs are barely above the baseline, and lows don't even reach anxiety. It's flat, like a cold, clinical beep. Part 2. Looting. Let's talk about this beautiful, shiny pile of nothing. There isn't a single item in this game that makes your heart start pounding. The rarest loot? Lens tape. 10,000. Wow, I almost had a stroke from trying to care. Finding a high tier loot here feels like finding a slightly cleaner sock in a trash can. It's still trash, it just smells less. Okay, a queen core is worth 15k, and you can stack them. But be honest, does that feel like a jackpot? And that lack of value ruins everything else. In other extraction shooters, you may find something worth $1 million, sometimes 4. And this jackpot item changes everything. You stop being a player, and you become a paranoid prey. You don't think about fighting anymore. You think about pathing, cover, and every millisecond between you and the extract. This lucky ticket out of poverty changes everything. It can fund your next 10 raids. Or finally buy that stash expansion that you've been dreaming about for a week. That's what creates the tension. That's what creates stories. In Arc Raiders, tension is dead. You win a fight, you open the bag, and it's the same Grey Stitcher, maybe slightly modded, because there's no real reason to push gear further. Extra 5 to 10% killing speed is just not worth it. Bringing a golden weapon isn't just a power move, it's just an invitation for every freebie on a map. The server official piñata has arrived, and it's begging to be stripped. But even if you're the one who downs that piñata and get your hands on a fully decked out bobcat with a kinetic converter, it still doesn't make your wee-wee go hard. Maybe a thin smile crosses your face, but that's it. And that's the problem, because in extraction shooters, the loot isn't just a reward. It is the reason to fight in the first place. If death doesn't sting because everything is replaceable, and victory doesn't thrill because nothing is value, why am I even here? Part 2.1. In raid activities. This reward problem makes the entire world feel empty. The first time I saw Baron Husk, I thought, wow, that's so cool, it's intense, everyone around knows you're going for it. Such a smart game mechanic, on paper. After looting it 10 times and finding nothing but great junk, I never touched it again. Most activities share the same fate. When was the last time you've got something purple from bringing a battery to a field depot? Now it stays ignored, cause nobody wants some early wipe junk and some utility items. Why bother with probes when you can hunt a bombardier with light impact nades and get more in half time? And the night raid with double loot rarity are not making this activity more attractive either. It doesn't matter how dark and atmospheric the world is, if the treasure at the end of tunnel is still a used sock. Part 3. Money economy. In Arc Raiders, money barely matters. There's no real incentive to stack millions, because there's almost nothing meaningful to spend it on. Trader overpriced inventories feel thin, like a shop window with cardboard behind it. And even if you do want something good, you can't just buy it fully upgraded. The game forces you to find everything yourself, which turns cash into a secondary source. Your main currency isn't money anymore, it's just the random junk you've hoarded. And I totally get that the best and rarest stuff is supposed to be hard to obtain, and some of it should be only found in raids or dropped by bosses. But when you first to find every single component for an upgrade, the advanced mechanical parts stop feeling like a treasure. They just feel like a shopping list for a recipe you didn't ask for. This is where the game loses its soul. I can barely remember a single raid when I pulled more than 180,000 worth of loot. And I don't think I've ever crossed a 250k. That's the ceiling. Now look at the average. It's what? 80 to 90k per raid? Do the math. Your best run is barely double your average run. That's not a jackpot. That's a slightly better Tuesday. There's no moment that you feel like you hit something big. No spike, no adrenaline, no I need to get out right now energy. Because the gap between peak and average is just too small. And when your highest highs are just twice as good as your average raid, they don't feel like highs at all. Some of you may say even triple as good. I say it doesn't matter. I genuinely feel much happier to find a sniper optic in Tarkov and immediately strap it to my assault rifle right there in the bushes than collect all the juicy loot from a bombardier. Some players actually do series of going with a bare and modded gun and during the raids upgrade it to a weapon of their dreams and make a story out of that. Try to do that with Stitcher or any other gun and see how exciting it's gonna be. There is no story in a collecting ingredients for a craft menu. Part 4. The free loadout problem. But the real star of the show is a free loadout system. It's not a scav run. It's a zombie apocalypse of a brain-dead idiots with zero cooldown. In Tarkov, being a scav is your last resort, your way out of poverty. It's a handicap. Your PvP potential is miserable. You have a tiny bag, a shitty gun, and you're terrified of big boys with real gear, and you are allowed to learn the map on easier terms. In Arc Raiders, it's a joke. It's not a survival mechanic anymore. It's a suicide torpedo simulator. You sprint to the best known TikTok loot spots, risk absolutely nothing, and if you die, who cares? You're back in a new match in 30 seconds. And the kits they give you, they are extremely PvP potent. The part that really broke it to me wasn't even when I was abusing it. It was when I was on the receiving end. It punishes the players who actually bring gear. Why should I risk my hard-earned kit when a horde of naked hobbits with stitchers can just swarm me until I'm dead? And what do I get if I win? Nothing, just destroyed armor and a chance to lose everything. I never thought I'd say this, but a cooldown like a 15-minute timer in Tarkov on Scav is actually a good thing. It's a punishment for your stupid decisions. If you've wasted your life poorly, you sit there in a menu and think about it. In Arc Raiders, the game pats you on the head and hands you another stitcher and says, "Go on, champ, try again." Let's be honest, I'm guilty of this too. I've spent time being that torpedo myself. And you know what? It's incredibly fun in the worst way possible. You just constantly throwing yourself at someone and see what happens. You third party, take their kit, and then you dive into a next fight. That's the whole loop. Playing this casino where you literally cannot lose is hella addictive. But at some point you realize that you're not playing an extraction shooter anymore. And as if the game wasn't broken enough, the players starting to killing it too. Do you know what these bastards are doing now? Not only is the free loadout, now it's the new way to farm. But people has started lobby surfing. If they spawn 3 minutes late, they just quit. Why wasting time scavenging when you're missed the window for loot the best TikTok spots which you saw on the internet, when you can just reset? And don't even get me started on the naked runs. People go in butt naked with nothing, find the most expensive item, usually it's a weapon blueprint, show it up their safe container ass, and then they don't care if they live or die. They already won. And when the geared player finally arrives, all he sees is an open containers and the corpses of players who realized they were late and just reset. Part number 5. Questing. The quest system doesn't just lack depth, it actively rewards mediocrity. You can finish every quest in a game without ever stepping into a raid with your main character. It's absurd. You just run in as a freebie, grab the item, and even if you don't make it out, the progress often sticks. There is no tension in reaching an objective because the game has already removed the stakes. By the time you reach the later, harder quests, the matchmaking often puts you into a greenhouse lobbies when nobody will interfere. Quiet, low-pop session where the threat is not existent. Players are happily running around, holding each other's dicks, hoarding their stashes for the first time, just to lose it all in the next wipe. You are not overcoming a hostile world. You just commuting through it. And the rewards? They are pointless. There's no progression. Traders are not gonna unlock you a new, more powerful weapon or attachment to buy. Why would I spend 20 minutes on a quest for a blue weapon when I can just find 5 of them in a weapon crates in a one quick run? And the quests by themselves are not much exciting either. They are more like a placeholders which slightly expands what you've already seen in the trailers and sometimes show you the best loot spots on a map because you need to grab an item there. Arc Raiders is stunning to look at, but it's mechanically shallow. It treats quests like a checklist for a job you didn't want, rather than a journey through a dangerous frontier. I've completed all of them before Stella Montis was released, and it never felt like a good, beautiful story of a dead world and the people who desperately fight for their right to live. In Tarkov, quests are not much better. But each time this fucking propper sends you to find this fucking golden watch, it's a new story to tell. Each time Jaeger gives you his wicked unhinged task is another tale of pain and triumph. And I'm not saying Arc Raiders needs to be Tarkov, but it needs to understand why Tarkov works and how to do better. I really wanna see a successor in that genre. It just happened that when other studios are trying to make their own version of extraction shooter with their special spin, they never try to go deep and understand why things are worked this way. Or even worse, maybe they do, and do that intentionally. Unfortunately, big studios never try to create the best extraction shooter possible. Vast majority of other extraction shooter games are shallow, and the Arc Raiders is not an exception, no matter how hard I want it to be. Part 6. Wipes. In Arc Raiders, early wipe doesn't exist. The meta guns, the Grey Stitcher and Anvil are available on day 1. There's no joy in being the king of the trash pile when everyone is a king from the start. I maxed out my entire base in 5 days. 5 days. 5 days of my life that I'll never get back. What am I supposed to do now? Wander around like a ghost in a high-tech graveyard looking for some recipes just to fill a collection? Keep kicking flying metal buckets for the next 6 months? Once the initial wow factor of the graphics wears off, there's no endgame, no stakes and no reason to return. Because the game is so arcadey and so accessible, it attracted a massive crowd of snowflakes. Players who want a cozy PvE experience in a genre built on a conflict. And now they're desperately hoarding their first piles of purple and golden shinies. They'll never take them into a raid because they are terrified of losing even one. They don't realize that the PvE only is a dead end. Without the constant threat of someone taking your loot, scavenging is just a grocery run. For them, the honeymoon phase is still on. For me, I'm already at the divorce court. Compare this to Tarkov. On early wipe, it's a completely new chapter. Everyone is equally deranged, and there is a wide variety of low-tier weapons to try something new this time. Everything has low power, everything feels different there. Fights are longer, you can maneuver more without being afraid to get blown off by a laser gun. Quest spots are alive again, and it lasts for months. Unless you are a no-lifer streamer who plays it 8 hours a day. But even then, reaching an end game is hell of a task. I've never finished every quest in a game, even after 4 wipes. I never unlocked a 50 cal Mjolnir, that kind of a gun that makes you shit your pants when you hear it, while simultaneously filling you with childlike glee because of how goddamn thunderous that boomstick sounds. I'll give you a taste. That's not boosted 100% game volume.
It sounds so family. It sounds so good. You had a family.
There is always something legendary to reach for. In Arc Raiders, you hit the ceiling in a week or 2, and once you're there, you realize the ceiling is made of a cardboard. Part 7. Atmosphere. Remember the first time we saw Arc Raiders? It looked like the holy grail of extraction shooters. The atmosphere was thick, the robots were terrifying, and every step felt like it carried the weight of survival. We were promised a world where we'd be a scavenger in a beautiful, deadly graveyard. I looked at those trailers and thought, this is it. This is the game that's going to make me feel alive again. As for the atmosphere, it exists only in trailers. In the trailers you see characters moving slowly, looking around, expecting danger from every shadow. In reality, everyone is just holding W key, there's zero suspense, it only exists in the marketing department. The only time you feel anything close to tension is when you're pinned in a corner waiting for a trigger grenade to end your miserable existence. That's it. Outside of that, it's just a mindless sprint through the pretty landscape and having an arcade shootout when someone tags you. Conclusion. This isn't just a bad game. It's a masterpiece of a wasted potential. It's a world that looks like $1,000,000 but feels like a cheap mobile ad once you start playing. By trying to appeal to everyone and being so afraid to offend anyone, it ended up satisfying no one. That's why 80% of the player base has already moved on. The only bright part is left is the player interactions. For me, Arc Raiders isn't an extraction shooter. It's a GTA RP with the robots. It's a beautiful polished world filled with absolutely nothing of value. Arc Raiders is the extraction shooter with the lowest possible point of entry. It's very arcadey, but at the same time, it's shallow and barely gives players a reason to stick around for a long time. Developers can keep pumping out new maps, new robots, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't change the core loop. Oh look, a new robot, wow! What does it actually change? Nothing. It's just another target for the 5 minutes of boredom. Unfortunately, you can't fix a broken heart with a new coat of paint. If the loop is dead, the game is dead, no matter how many new features you slap on it. But does that mean Arc Raiders is actually dead? Not really. It still had a quite big player base, and if developers finally start to fix and rework the main problems of the game, it might even come back to its peak. That was my story of Arc Raiders that should be out months ago. HFA out.